is your partner in restoration, but that's what Frank's going to talk to us about. Frank's background is actually as an echologist. He's a fisheries guy. He's now the restoration ecologist for the whole division, something like that, serving many core districts. So his slides are ready. Without further ado, Frank, and I bet there'll probably be some fish pictures in there.
Okay, I think the right arrow is working. Maybe down. Or come on, baby.
There we go.
Okay.
Hope everyone's doing well, and spring's coming, so everyone's probably getting excited. Jeff already introduced me, so I won't go through this slide again, but I do love fish, as you can see. Yeah, I'm here to pretty much talk to you guys about how you can partner with the Army Corps of Engineers to do ecosystem restoration projects, whether it's just planning, design, or everything, implementation and monitoring and stuff like that. So we were given a handful of authorities by Congress to do these things with you. Our biggest one lately, because we were getting funded by the Great Lakes, was our GLIFR program. All those sections you see there, the section 506, 206, all those sections refer to what section they are in the WARDA bill that they've been authorized to give us permission to work on these. So all of these here are ecosystem authorities we could use to do ecosystem restoration. The 506 is specific to the Great Lakes if you're in that watershed. And section 206, aquatic ecosystem restoration, is probably the most popular. That's nationwide, and it gets a certain pot of funding every year. Section 1135 is a little different. If you can make a tie to the Army or Department of Defense damaging the ecosystem or something like that, you can get a better cost share. Typically, all of these studies are for the study part of it, it's cost shared 50-50. And then when you go into implementation and design, it's cost shared 65-35. And you can also use the value of your lands as your cost share, as well as work in kind and cash, of course. But that section 1135 has a little better cost share. It's 75% federal because we were responsible for the damage. One of the big ones that Cindy mentioned, the dam study on the Fox River, that's under our section 519, Illinois River. That's a specific authority for the Illinois River, and is out of our Rock Island district, who I coordinate with quite often. And then if you have really giant projects, so all those I just mentioned are for total project limits about $15 million total. 10 million federal, 5 million non-federal, comes out to about that. But if you wanted to do a huge project, you can get it specifically authorized through Congress. Sounds like a long process, and it is. But you know, if you have 3,000 acres and you're in the Hackmatack area that needs a big study for hydrology and how to restore everything and then help pay for it, that's kind of the projects where you have those big, large things. And then we have just if you need planning or design support, we can do a 50-50 cost share under planning assistance to states. There's no construction or any kinds of things that go with that. It's just giving you a planning document or whatever you guys kind of request. It's kind of open-ended. Then we've also been doing special work with other agencies, and specifically through US EPA. We are contracted right now we're working on Green Bay with the Wisconsin DNR. I think Jesse might talk about a little bit today. He might mention it, the mussel guy from Wisconsin. I'm working with him, Jesse Weinzinger. And we're doing all kinds of things of design criteria and conceptual designs and thinking about how to restore the whole Green Bay. So there's all kinds of things we can do with different kinds of authorities and things like that. Our restoration approach, folks often get worried that they're coming to engineers to do ecosystem stuff. That was a worry, I would say, about 15 years ago. But now the biologists are kind of got all the engineers in line, and we use them as our tools instead of just saying you're going to do what the engineers want. So we think about things along the lines of restoring the primary drivers, as you saw in presentations already: hydrologies, hydraulics, geomorphologies, soils, and substrate. You got to think about that fungi, bacteria, mycorrhizae component that we heard about. And then plants, and more plants. And then we monitor the animals that come back and things like that. Sometimes we introduce animals, specifically mussels. We have a whole robust team to do all these things: ecologists, hydrologists, environmental engineers, civil engineers, cost engineers, real estate specialists. Then we have, when we go to do our project, we also manage the whole construction contract. And so we have contracting and construction operations. Typically, if you sign up for one of these things, one of the smaller numbered sections I talked about are typically 12 to 18 months, but the big specifically authorized ones are up to 3 years. Like Army Corps can't study things over 3 years anymore. Congress said, you guys take way too long. So I'd say about 5 years ago, we got directed that everything's got to be done in 3 years if you're doing a big study. But our small ones, we can get done sometimes in 8 months. If the non-federal sponsors that sign up have done all their homework with the locals, have conceptual plans, stuff like that, it can go pretty fast. Design, about half a year to a year. And then we can do construction. We're authorized up to 5 years, but we can push for our longer times. We've made cases because we have to take care of plants in these ecosystem projects. You can't just throw a bunch of seed out there and walk away. So we do about 3 to 5 years of basically establishing plants after we do all of our big earthwork and things like that. And then we can monitor up to 10 years legally. That's also cost shared. And then after about 10 years, we all of the nature-based and natural features, which we're moving towards things that are in harmony with nature. We actually completely release non-federal sponsors from the whole project and don't actually require anything anymore on those. But if you have structural components, those have to be maintained with some legal kinds of things attached to them. And then once we're all done for years and years, we still come back and look at the sites to make sure things are still functioning properly with the inspection of completed works we have. If we find things that are wrong, we just talk with the non-federal sponsors to see how we could help fix things like that. Here, some of my slides you can read. I'm sure Tom will post them up for you guys to read. That's why they're a little more detailed. I'm not going to read through all this, but it basically tells you everything we do in a feasibility study. By the time we're done with our feasibility study, we have all the permits and all the sign-offs from all the other agencies, historic preservation, section 401 water quality. Army Corps doesn't permit themselves for 404, so we don't do a 404 permit, but we do a 404B analysis that's in our report to make sure we're not, we're in compliance and stuff like that. Design, we do detailed plans and specifications that are officially managed and put out for contractors to bid on. We typically do not do any of the construction work ourselves. We do all the design work ourselves right now, but as capacity starts to get taken up, we might be seeking other kinds of A&E contractors to help us with designs. But mostly the contractors are implementing all of these projects for us. Construction, I kind of mentioned how we kind of phase it. You know, we do all the big earthwork, moving stuff, restore the hydrology, break the tiles, fill the ditches, remove the dams. You know, are we going to do any stream meandering, do all that earthwork, stuff like that. And usually the first and second year. And then again, as I mentioned, the rest of the time is basically establishing native plants. And then we during the feasibility phase, we develop a monitoring plan. So we can sample before, during, and after, and everything's the same. So folks can see the differences, and sometimes we can compare in the Army Corps to, you know, what's going on with all these projects. Are we having success or not? So we can do up to 10 years of monitoring, like I said. And then once everything's good, we kind of close it up and hand it back to the non-federal sponsor. So kind of for the whole construction period, the Army Corps has the right to the land, which is provided by the non-federal sponsor. So you either have to have, you know, own the land outright, which we always prefer, or you can have easements on the land. Ecosystem easements work too. And sometimes it's a partnership of folks. You know, sometimes the friends of groups want to do the restoration, and then they'll work with the forest preserves, you know, to kind of be the land part of the thing and help out. So there's all kinds of partnerships you can form on your own then to kind of be a united front to come in for a project. Projects are kind of easy for you to come in. All you have to do is we have official letters. You just you can contact me or anyone at the Army Corps, and they can direct you to the right people. And they'll probably give you a boiler letter, and you write up a letter saying, hey, we're interested in a 60-acre wetland project here, here, and here under your 206 program. And it's kind of that simple for us to get it into our system and start trying to get you into a project. Of course, it has to meet, you know, we'll do initial site visit to make sure it has some merit and it's a real ecosystem project. Some projects aren't that good to partner with the Army Corps. We kind of do the big ones, earth moving, kinds of hydrology and hydraulics and dam removals and stuff like that. But if you have a 25-acre prairie that's all somewhat healthy and you're just looking to remove invasive species, that's typically not a project you would do at the Corps. We'd waste more money than we would even, you know, just go out there and pull it by hand at that point. So here's some examples just to see what we're up to and what we've done. We don't have a lot of examples from the Fox River Basin, so maybe this is a good start. A lot of our stuff has been in the Lake Michigan Basin, primarily due that's where the funding has been a lot. But we're starting to see some stuff come in now from our western counties in Chicago here. The 63rd Street Dune, so we did a little dune restoration with the Chicago Park District. This is what it looked like before. No one really used the beach, and a bunch of weeds start growing on it. The dune had formed because the Army Corps in the past, if you see here, it built, it's called Casino Pier. It's just a jetty out in Lake Michigan, and it keeps sand there. And the dune kind of keeps getting bigger as the water pushes the sand up and blows the sand back. And it's getting even bigger now that we restored the plant community, which is capturing the sand. And so afterwards, after about 3 years, we had a nice dunal community with a little wetland scrape here we even did in the beach, which I thought would be gone after the first winter of ice came, but it's still there. It's kind of interesting how it's stayed there. So really neat kind of little plant community. There's little white-footed mice out there and things like that. Park District's trying to grow the federally threatened pitcher's thistle out there. I'm not sure if it's reproducing though, but they're definitely out there. Nipper-Sink Creek, I put this one in here because that's the one we had in the Fox. We did this with McHenry County Conservation District, Ed Collins, basically helping them implement their plan at the Glacial Park. Our part of the project here with them was about 560 some acres. All the hydrology, the drain tiles had been restored already by the conservation district. So what we did is we looked at a couple ditches to fill in and grade out, and then repair all of the damage caused by the Wonder Lake Dam. So everything downstream of the Wonder Lake Dam is incised because that dam takes the sediment and certain, fluvio-geomorphic parameters away. So the river cut down and left lots of eroded, yucky soil banks there and stuff like that. Here's kind of what our plan looked like. Those are all the different plant communities. You see the big ditch here. We basically graded the ditch out. Instead of sometimes filling them in, you could pull them out and make huge wetland basins. That's what we kind of did there. We're getting rid of all that channel incision. Two ways to get rid of that. You could either bring the stream back up to the floodplain, or bring the floodplain back down to the stream. And here the only option really was to take those banks down and get the water back into the floodplain. Lots of earth moving, but did work pretty nicely. So here is after the first year of grading all the banks. And then I think this was the second year, and then this is probably the fifth year. You have your Grand Prairie restored around your prairie stream. And we put a couple of riffles in the stream, not too many, but yeah, lots of cool fish in Nippersink. Eugene Field Park, here's a little urban restoration we did with the Chicago Park District. Basically, their little soccer field was flooding every year. Didn't know what to do with it. And so we did a soil survey just for fun with NRCS. So we actually found real soils in the city, and they were completely undescribed. There were mussel shells in there. So it's probably from a former little side stream wetland or something. So as you saw in the waterfowl restoration presentation, which was basically a good presentation on how you restore wetlands, we kind of did the same thing and peeled off all that old sediment off the top, not old sediment, all the urban kind of sediment that filled in over the natural wetland soils. And came up with a little plan, the riffles in this section of the stream actually sit on concrete. The Park District didn't want to go through with ripping all the concrete out of the stream at that point. It's kind of scary and expensive for them. We did this project probably like 10 years ago. And so we tried putting the riffles on the concrete, and we got them to sit there, except the problem is there's no sediment in the Chicago River transport. So there's no sand, there's no gravel, there's hardly any silts even. It's basically just urban dirts. And so nothing's really accumulating behind the riffles like we wanted to, form gravel bars and sand bars and stuff. So it's interesting. Fish are still in the riffle, but lots of interesting things get caught up in those riffles too, being in the Chicago River. We did a little duck potato wetland on the side there. Was surprisingly has stayed healthy and kind of free of invasive species, even with minimal work that the Park District does. A little interesting site. And I think in the 6th year, we got a muskrat in a little hut built in there, and he started cleaning out some of the duck potato, and it created like a whole new little area of different species. Kind of interesting. And this is all only like 8 acres, very small. Red Mill Pond. This was the very first project implemented for Glifford, Great Lakes Fisheries Ecosystem and Restoration Authority. There's an old mill dam in the headwaters of the Calumet River, and the Girl Scouts had bought it, and then the Girl Scouts sold it to Lake County Parks, who finally ended up with it. And you can see the dam and the pond up in the left side. And so we kind of removed the dam and restored about 400 feet of stream. This is a really interesting site. It's in knob and kettle kind of topography. So there's springs and seeps everywhere. And there's large fens too back in the woodlands. So we wanted to be careful that we didn't disrupt any of that hydrology. And in fact, when we took the dam out, it expressed a lot more of those seeps, and we got some cool side slope wetlands and stuff like that. This is a really neat one. It has really neat fish still. Think of the little Calumet as a kind of a, Calumet River crappie. But if you go up in the headwaters, you still get these rare fishes because there's some sections of the Calumet River that are untouched because the farmers kind of sandwiched them and no one was able to get in there. So you could actually find remnant swamp in there. That what it looked like a long time ago. It's pretty cool. Northerly Island, it's just kind of a showpiece, but it actually provides really good habitat for Lake Michigan fishes and migratory birds. We actually found black buffalo spawning and successfully in there and didn't know they spawned in Lake Michigan, at least in southern Lake Michigan. And so that was really cool to find. And so here's that remnant swamp I was kind of talking about. That was another little project we did. Really small project. All we did was kind of remove invasive species. But you could see how the old swamp looked in the little Calumet River. I was going to pull up another slideshow on the Fox River dams, but I don't think we need to. If you guys want to ask questions, Cindy lets you know we did get funding. We've been waiting for how long, Cindy?
2015, I think.
Yeah. So we have a pretty much completed feasibility study for the Fox River dams, looking at all the dams from Algonquin to Montgomery. And all of the dams are justified to be taken out by the Army Corps. We did our analysis using all the Illinois DNR fish, mussel, and macroinvertebrate data. And basically showed the Army Corps these are all justified to take out. So the only thing we have to do to finish the study is the hydraulics and hydrology analysis to make sure, what's going to happen if we take the dams out. Are we going to flood anyone? We'll look a little bit at the sediment transport too, although all the stuff behind the dams is pretty much sand and gravel, some cobbles, very little fine stuff. That all gets washed over the dams. And public reviews going out, letting people know what we're doing, seeing if the municipalities want to sign up to have their dam removed or not. We're not forcing anyone, but you definitely can sign up and have a lot of it paid for by the Army Corps if you want to join in. I know the Carpenterville's dam's being removed, so we'll probably, yeah. So we'll probably have to work around that one a little bit and take that out of the recommended plan and have it with our future without project condition. But yeah, any questions? Yeah.
Ripples.
Yes, sir.
They're building them in front of my house as we sit here.
Oh.
What I've noticed, and maybe you could get some info on some do's or don'ts over the years. And, it seems like they took some big high overs, they scoop out the riverbed or whatever, and lay down some cobbly type of material, medium-sized stone and such, and I'm bringing a few big boulders. Are they going to hold on softer soils, or what do you need for your
yeah. That's a good point, because you could put rocks into a soft stream and they'll just sink away and go away. So we don't like to use geotextile fabrics and unnatural things like that, but we do that.
Hey Frank, you can keep talking while we set up the next one.
You can put down a filter layer of gravel and do it the right way, and it should keep those up. Typically in a stream, you're putting a riffle in, it should kind of already be hard bottom. If it's so soft like that, it's more of a wetland stream.